I woke up lying in my bed, still completely made from the night before, save for the imprint I made in it lying on top of the covers. It's freezing, I thought to myself, as I pulled a thick jacket over my stiff and mildly sore frame. I walked out of my back door to the fire pit and got a fire roaring pretty fast with some leftover matches and kindling, and threw on some coffee. I went back inside to wash my face and freshen up. After that, I felt much better. So I took my cup of coffee, put on some shoes, and walked into the thin, wintry forest that surrounded my house. I was doing my daily rounds to check my snare traps and make sure no uninvited guests were wrecking my property, when I caught a strange scent. It smelled like a cross between ozone and burning meat. I wandered around for a long time, but ultimately found nothing. So I turned back my snares, having caught nothing. I started to wander home. Several times along the way, I could have sworn I heard the faint sound of hundreds of beetles scraping and sliding over one another. A very alien sound that I could best describe as spine-tingling. By this point, I had my hand on the grip of my 10-inch buck knife I carried everywhere on my hip. Seriously thinking something was wrong before my investigation into this new matter could get very far. However, a thunder cracked the sky, turned what had been a fresh morning into a roaring downpour, and what would have been a day otherwise spent hunting and fishing into a dreary, dark as night, do-nothing day. I sat in my rocking chair, started a fire in my fireplace, and not feeling totally assured that everything was exactly normal, I had my .357 Magnum in my hand that was loosely hanging off the armrest of the chair. My finger was near the trigger, not quite on it, but close. Every so often, I'd stand up and check my windows. The visibility was terrible, but the few times I looked out, I could have sworn I saw what looked like a raggedy, tattered black sheet fly past. What I was absolutely sure of was that every light was staying lit in the house until the storm blew over and I could put a bullet in whatever was causing my troubles. Stirring me out of my thoughts and making me grip the gun tighter, though, were 3 loud, forceful knocks on my door. I opened up the door to see my neighbor from about half a kilometer down the dirt road. We had never actually talked besides the first day he had moved in. He had told me that his power went out and asked if he could come in and stay until the storm blew over, warning him that I didn't have any power. He said that the company would still be nice. We sat, we ate, we drank, and I felt reasonably more secure having someone there to weather the storm with. He helped me patch a leak I found in my room and seemed to be an okay guy. I told him what was happening, and rather than flat out disbelieving me or expressing shock, he frowned. We got to talking, and apparently similar sounds had been occurring at his place, although much more frequently. He seemed a little on edge now that I thought of it, since he showed up. I was just about to suggest falsely that the storm was weakening and perhaps he should go home, when a cold, forceful wall of air came through every crack in my house, blowing out the fire and all the light it provided. Running quickly over, I tried to light it, but it wouldn't catch. I ran around the house looking for candles without luck, and then I stopped moving for a second and came to a realization. It was dead silent. No storm, no panicked breathing from my neighbor, just my own heartbeat. Pulling out the pistol I'd stored in my belt by then, I did a quick check of every room in my house. The neighbor was nowhere to be found. Hearing a faint scraping, however, I slowly walked over to the closet, finger on the trigger, and pulled it open as fast as I could. neighbor had his throat slit clean open by something or someone. My heart raced as I heard the sound again of scraping, clicking beetle shells sliding over each other. I looked down at his face again, only there was no face. Just two wide holes where his eyes had been, with beetle larvae inside. Hundreds of beetles were trying to force their way out of his horribly disfigured mouth, all about the size of a bottle cap. It appeared that they had been taking residence inside him for months. I noticed strange lumps running up and down his exposed skin and knew what it had to be. I went to grab him to drag him into a better light so I could get a better look at him, when a giant pincer came out of his mouth and stabbed me in my hand. The barbed pincer had nowhere to go but deeper, and I knew I couldn't get it out. The side of my hand, dropping the gun, proved to be a grave mistake, as what happened next was a flurry of motion, and would be an extremely confusing coincidence to the average onlooker. A giant monstrosity resembling the love child of a scorpion and a scarab beetle burst forth from his chest, his bones apparently having been liquefied. I stood in shock as it pushed forth into the world. Thinking fast, I went for my gun, but it had its black shiny claws wrapped around my arm and crushing it. Before I could get there, which I responded by chopping away with not much success at this monstrous crab-like arm, realizing if I didn't get my arm out soon, my bones would be pulverized. I flipped my knife around into a backwards grip and stabbed the freak-show bastard in its compound eye, causing it to audibly screech, a horrible sound that sounded like the combination of an out-of-tune violin and nails on a chalkboard. It let go, though, and that gave me the respite I needed to grab my shotgun off my mantelpiece, load it, and blow the abomination's head section clean off the rest of it. Satisfied that it was dead, I quickly picked it up and brought it out to my shed. Opening the door, I looked inside, disgusted. Dozens of fresh bodies with slit throats and shotgun blasts to their torso. Eyes missing. How would this goddamned bug use a shotgun? Oh well. I left the corpse of the bug, threw it into the shed. I went inside and sat down on my nicely made bed. I've had a long day, I thought. After taking off my jacket and realizing just how tired I was, I didn't even bother to get comfy. Just laid there and allowed myself to fall asleep on top of the blankets.